Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're following a breaking news out of Burkina Faso tonight, where the government has announced a major counter-espionage operation resulting in several arrests on the allegation of spying to strike the heart of national security. Ladies and gentlemen, Burkina Faso Defense Minister has already dropped some statements on this particular development. Burkina 7 has this information. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as we watch this video.
For some time now, our services have been closely monitoring the activities of a non-governmental organization called the International NGO Safety Organization, abbreviated as INSO. Thanks to genuine cooperation from citizens, our services have managed to understand that this non-governmental organization constituted a spy network in Burkina Faso. Regarding the facts, the NGO INSO, whose headquarters are currently located in the Netherlands, has been operating in our country since 2019 under Establishment Convention number 057-2019-MINFI-INSO. In accordance with the Establishment Convention in Burkina Faso, the NGO's field of activity is limited to training humanitarian NGOs in matters of security. However, in violation of the ambiguous legislation in our country, this NGO was systematically collecting all types of information related to the country's security, political and administrative activities. Thus, investigations revealed that INSO, with the help of some of our fellow citizens, was carefully recording the routes, movements, and composition of military convoys and the resupply of cities without keeping this information secret in the interest of national defense. It systematically recorded the military resources deployed to secure a given convoy, gathering information on the number of vehicles, heavy weapons, motorcycles, and so on. IMSO also spent its time collecting information about operational areas, the positions of units, as well as the interventions of defense and security forces and volunteers for the defense of the homeland on the ground. It even managed to accurately record the GPS coordinates of the locations where the defense and security forces clashed with terrorists, as well as the positions of incidents at the URIs. Subsequently, the NGO would count the number of victims after an attack or a security operation. In these illicit activities, INSO managed to gather information on the movements of terrorists in certain localities and on the heinous acts suffered by the populations, then also counted and photographed the victims after the terrorists had passed through these areas. In this nest of espionage, they also recorded information for us in the cities, such as road traffic accidents, decisions or operational issues of special delegations, and the activities of security services. Not limiting itself to Burkina Faso, INSO used these networks to collect the same types of information about Mali from within our countries. This suspicious behavior by INSO raises several questions, namely, why systematically collect all information related to the security environment? What do they do with this information? To whom do they send this information? Where is all this information stored? How is such information used? What happens to this information after it is used? What real objective is hidden behind such data collection? Who is this information intended for? According to the explanation given by the INSO PI director and his deputy, respectively a Frenchman and a Frenchwoman of Senegalese origin, the information collected is used on the one hand to inform humanitarian NGOs operating in Burkina Faso, but also to draft reports for the benefit of their financial partners. The country director of INSO Burkina, Jean-Christophe Emile Pégan, even admitted during his interrogation that he instructed his staff to collect sensitive information, notably on security incidents along with GPS coordinates, affected locations, the positions and movements of supply convoys in violation of their establishment agreements with the state for those who do not have one. Regarding the ultimate use of such systematic collection of sensitive information, no clear answer was given by the services. Because they say this is the roadmap the NGO gave them and they are trying to carry it out as best they can. They claim not to know what happens to this data, which is centralized in a database abroad. As explained above, INSO, in order to carry out its mission, has recruited nationals with various backgrounds as advisors. Among these agents are former FPS members. Their role is to centralize the data by area and analyze it, providing both a security interpretation and a political interpretation. A second tier of qualified field agents is responsible for organizing the collection of information on the ground. Finally, they have set up a third layer made up of people they carefully select based on their strategic position or activities, which facilitates their access to information. These individuals often reside in areas experiencing severe security deficits, particularly within the regions of Gulmu, Sirba, Takoha, Sum, Lutako, and Kunse. Additionally, the areas of Yadga, Nakambe, Bankui, and Suvu are also significantly affected, this particular group, which they specifically call community relays and to whom they regularly and consistently pay money, is primarily made up of either local merchants, diligent gold panners, but also respected elders and even some enemies. In light of such serious and concerning actions, and in order to allow the investigative service to better understand the real objectives pursued by this NGO, a suspension of all its activities has been pronounced through Decree 2025-EE-0241 MATL, dated 31st J 2025, suspending the foreign NGO known as International NGO Safety Organization. Despite this suspension, certain INSO officials continued to clandestinely or covertly carry out activities such as information gathering and holding meetings, either in person or online. Based on this observation, 7 other employees of the DTONG were apprehended, including the Deputy Director, Mrs. Disse Aminata Marianne, of Franco-Senegalese nationality, Mr. Mozik Touma. Program Director of INSO of Kek nationality, a Malian, and 4 Burkinabe nationals. It should be noted that it is indeed Mrs. Guisse Aminata Marianne, the Deputy Director, who continues to hold online meetings and organize information gathering from her home located in the Zone du Bois neighborhood of Ouagadougou in defiance of the suspension order. She also organized the trip of Moussi Touma from The Hague to Ouagadougou on September 8, 2025, even though the NGO's activities are suspended. He is the Program Director of UNISO at its headquarters in The Hague and also serves as the Acting General Director of the NGO. At this stage of the investigation, it can be clearly stated that UNISO is a foreign NGO run by foreigners who were collecting and providing sensitive security information that could be detrimental to the national security and interests of Burkina Faso to foreign powers, and this in full complicity with certain Burkinabe individuals. In terms of the decision taken, given all those involved, all the individuals implicated who have been detained will be brought before the prosecutor of Faso for espionage and treason. In accordance with the provisions of Article 311.4 of Law 05-2018 of May 31st, 2018, relating to criminal penalties for the offenses in question. Initially, the NGO's objective was to identify its target environment, that is, the environment in which, of course, it was seeking to gather information according to the directives from its headquarters. Once the environment is identified, the next step is to find the person who is best positioned to access the information. Everything, of course, starts with the orientation of the NGO from its headquarters according to the established rules. So from there, once the person who has access to the information is identified, they obviously move on to the approach and recruitment, now with compensation offers. So if you accept, you are recruited, and from there, the work begins. So that's more or less how we can present the techniques for recruiting and identifying people. And you have followed all of this in my opening statement. Not only is it based on security information, so if it concerns students, obviously it was also necessary to use former RPS to provide information, to provide the structure of the network, to provide the types of weapons. Because if you take a civilian or an agent or even a former member to identify the types of weapons, it's not obvious. So obviously you need someone who knows about it. If you also want to get information in the field of recruitment, you need to identify a leader. That's how the NGO went about identifying its candidates and proceeded with recruitment. As for the remuneration, we can mention them. The country director received 3.5 million per month. His assistant, 3.5 million. The NGO's DAC, 2.4 million. The NEIL operations, the operations managers, 2.4 million. The HR director, 1.2 million. The safety advisor, 1.8 million. The training manager, 1.8 million. The regional analyst, because he is the one responsible for analyzing and providing security assessments to policymakers based on the intelligence collected. He received 1.7 million. And the junior safety officer, advisor, 1,300,000. The GIS manager or information manager, 1,800,000. The field monitor, 110,000. The one responsible, of course, for managing the coverage plan and collecting information in the field. And official information, 800,000. The training assistant, that's 130,000. The financier, assistant, 590,000. The GIS assistant, 590,000. The senior driver, 520,000. The driver, a total of 390,000, was involved in the incident. The security guard, 210,000. The cook, the mixer, 390,000. The cleaning staff, 210,000.
And as you all can see, we've always asked the questions: where are the terrorists? Where are they getting the precise location from? Where do they get the satellite image from? Because most of the time we get information that these elements always have the satellite information of what is going on in some particular military outpost before they get there. And looking at the level of collaboration that's this particular case is already revealing to us, looking at the type of collaboration they have with some very influential Burkinabes, and some Malians are even involved, to the point that Senegal citizens are even involved to a certain extent. So it means that these elements normally get this information from sources that actually meets the highs. Maybe that's why they've had some success in and you wonder sometimes, most especially when the Burkinabe troops were actually taking food and logistic items to the people of Palma, where they had an improvised explosive device actually detonating on their route to Palma. And what you notice is 9 of the security forces actually went with that incident. So could this be a close coordination with these NGOs? And sometimes you wonder why this explosive just detonated, and you have some of this element already waiting, and getting their cameras on as if they were expecting troops to come. These troops are coming from Ouagadougou. They are going, like, they're traveling about 4-5 hours journey. So it's a big question. How do they know that the troops are coming? Why are they with cameras as at the time when the troops are coming? It means they've actually gotten precise intel about the schedule of these troops, when they will go to this particular place, at what time will they get there. So which gives the elements a lot of time to prepare an ambush and all of the things like that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very incredible news, but the one that actually meets the eyes is, for how long have they been doing this? And more question is, how many more NGO will Burkina Faso have to stop? At this point, ladies and gentlemen, have we gotten to a point where the Burkinabe government just have to say no more NGOs? That's a big question, but you can provide us the answer. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have another development coming out of Nigeria. We have a situation where the United States Congressman Riley Moore has actually thrown his weight behind this narrative that has been going back and forth on the social media space, most especially the X platform, that there has been a genocidal operation by some of the Islamists in Nigeria, or the Islamist extremists, to wipe out the Christian population. Ladies and gentlemen, the question is this true? Let's listen to what U.S. Congressman Riley Moore has to say.
You sent a letter to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. You called on the State Department to redesignate Nigeria as a country of particular concern due to the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. What's going on there?
Yes, it's really, truly a tragedy what is happening in Nigeria. Just this year alone, 7,000 Christians have been killed by Boko Haram, an Islamic terrorist organization. Just on Ash Wednesday this year, we had a priest kidnapped and murdered, and another 54 Christians martyred on Palm Sunday. There's 35 Christians a day being murdered in Nigeria by an Islamic terrorist organization. The Biden administration removed that designation of a country of particular concern for Nigeria. President Trump had put that designation on them in his first term, and I'm urging Secretary Rubio to bring that designation back because it is certainly warranted. We need to stand up for these Christians who are being murdered in Nigeria.
Unbelievable. All right, Congressman, we'll be watching your work on that as well. Thanks very much for being here this morning. Riley Moore.
Actually, there has been conflicting opinion on this matter. We have some people saying that Christians are being harmed. Some are saying both Christian and Muslim are being harmed. Some are saying it is more of Muslims that are being harmed than Christian. But the fact is, when we look at the contextual argument here, both Christians and Muslims have been harmed by these Islamic extremists. But the big question is, based on this context, right, has there been mass murder of Christians in Nigeria? If you have to bring the Jos and the Benue incidents, you have to bring it into the picture here, most especially the Yellowwater massacre. Definitely, we can say that there is a substantial evidence as to why this narrative flying around that Christians are being murdered in Nigeria, it can actually really apply to the situation. And is there a truth in it? Actually, there's a very big fat chunk of truth in it. But the question that most people have been asking is, why is the United States coming out to show solidarity and support? And why are they so concerned at this point in time, when in real time, when these incidents were going on, the world chose to ignore the plight of the Nigerians? Most especially, one of the big turning points in this whole chaos that has been going on age long was the murder of a certain Deborah in part of the northern state. There was a scuffle out of a class WhatsApp group. Something was said back and forth that wasn't related to religion, and it was twisted and turned And at the end of the day, she was neutralized by the Islamic mobs. So the thing is, at the time when this incident happened, security officials tried to rescue her, but they were overpowered by the Islamic mobs. We have certain politicians in Nigeria trying to throw their weight behind the situation and condemn the act. But they were warned by majority of the Islamists from the north that they must take a side, and they chose to go quiet on the issue. And again, we have some conspicuous people in Nigeria. Let's say people with conspicuous identity, who at the time said the Boko Haram and the bandits are freedom fighters fighting for the rights of the northern Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear these comments and you listen to the comments of some of the people that has actually backed this heinous crime, you will be able to understand why some of the Nigerian populace are actually given a green light to this particular allegation that is already on the scene. Ladies and gentlemen, the most disturbing episode of this whole narrative that has been going on, and it's already at a controversial level, is now the introduction of the Blackwater founder, Eric Prince, who has actually said if Pope Leo can fund his army, that he's ready to move into Nigeria to protect the Christian population. Isn't that disturbing? The Blackwater founder? So it begs the question, why is all this chaos? Why is it coming? Why is it that this whole comment started after the Nigerian vice president went to the United Nations General Assembly, the 80th in New York, and he actually talked about a certain genocide going on in Gaza? And immediately after this whole thing started, then we started hearing about a genocide in Nigeria. Is this a tit for tat thing? Ladies and gentlemen, you can drop your opinion in the comment section below. Do well to hit the like and subscribe button. It's your boy 7200 signing out. Enough said, but before I go, thank you for watching and God bless you.